Silly girl. That was what my lawyer said after reading the papers my sister had forged. I was halfway through my morning coffee in London when he told me the apartment my grandmother had left me no longer existed. Sold, signed, stolen. My sister had turned my inheritance into her own payday, and the proof was right there in front of me. I didn't scream, and I didn't even hang up. I just stared out the window, watching the rain slide down as if it already knew what I was about to do. If my sister thought I would stay quiet on the other side of the ocean, she had no idea what silence could do. I used to think distance protected me from family drama, from their constant comparisons, and from the quiet looks that said I would never be enough. Living in London gave me space to breathe and to build something of my own. My sister, Jessica, stayed back home. She married well and became the perfect daughter everyone bragged about at church. Mom adored her for that. I was the dreamer who left. But there was one person who never made me feel small. My grandmother, Barbara, was sunshine in a world of cold approval. Every summer she made tea on her balcony overlooking the bay. The ceiling fan hummed while she told me stories about starting over after my grandfather died. "Don't let life make you small, Sarah," she would whisper, squeezing my hand. "You are made to take up space." That apartment wasn't just a property. It was her legacy, a place soaked in her scent, her laughter, and her love. When she died, she left the deed to me, handwritten and signed in her soft cursive. It was her way of saying, "I see you even if no one else does." After the funeral, Jessica took charge of everything. The flowers, the paperwork, the meetings about the estate. She looked so composed in her cream dress, greeting relatives like a hostess instead of a grieving granddaughter. I thought she was being responsible. It turned out she was arranging more than just roses. Mom used to sigh on the phone. "You should be more like your sister. She has her life in order." I would bite my tongue, sip my coffee, and let the comments slide. I learned early on that fighting for justice in our family was like screaming at a hurricane. So when my lawyer called that morning, when he said the apartment had already been sold, I felt something inside me shift. The shock was cold, precise, almost surgical. For a moment, I imagined Jessica signing the papers with that polished smile of hers, the one she wore when she wanted everyone to believe she knew best. I opened my laptop and scrolled through photos on my phone until I found one of my grandmother and me on that same balcony. Her hand rested on mine. The sunlight caught the shine of the silver watch she always wore. My throat tightened. That apartment was more than walls and keys. It was proof that someone once believed I was enough, and now my sister had turned it into cash. The rain outside grew heavier, hitting the window like a warning. I closed my eyes and whispered to no one. "Grandma, I'm sorry. I should have protected what you gave me." Then my phone buzzed again. A new email from my lawyer. Subject, "Inconsistencies found." My heart stopped because deep down I already knew who was behind it. David's voice came through the line. "Sarah, there is something strange about these documents," he said. "The notary stamps don't match, and the signature looks rehearsed." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen in disbelief. "Rehearsed?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He hesitated and then exhaled. "Silly girl," he muttered under his breath. Not at me, but at whoever thought they could get away with it. "Your sister must have forged it." Those two words, silly girl, cut deeper than he intended. They stayed in my head, repeating until the meaning twisted. To him, it was an observation. To me, it was a challenge. My sister thought I was too naive, too far away, and too trusting to notice. Maybe I had been, but not anymore. I minimized the call and opened my email. There it was, the scanned copy of my grandmother's will that David had sent me months ago. The signature on the transfer of rights looked similar but not identical. The loops were tighter, the pressure harder. Jessica always pressed too hard when she wrote. She liked to leave a mark. Outside, the rain didn't stop. The drops slid down the window in crooked lines that blurred the city. I felt the same fog inside me, rage and disbelief bending until they became something sharper. My grandmother once said, "If someone steals from you, they aren't taking what is yours. They are revealing who they are." Now, I finally saw who Jessica really was. David cleared his throat on the other end of the line. "Listen, Sarah, don't confront her yet. Tampering with legal documents is serious. We need proof. I will start checking property records and payment files. You just stay quiet for now." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Okay," I said, my voice flat and controlled. "Just find out how deep this goes." When he hung up, silence filled the apartment, that kind of silence that hums in your bones. I stared at my hands, trembling slightly over the keyboard. It wasn't just about the apartment. It was about every dinner table where Jessica had overshadowed me, every eye roll when I mentioned art school, every time Mom said, "You are too emotional." Maybe I was, but emotion was what made me human, and this time, I was going to become dangerous. I spent the next few hours digging through old emails, letters from my grandmother, digital scans, and even old photos of her handwriting. Every stroke, every loop became evidence. When I compared them side by side, the difference was clear as day. The forged signature looked almost perfect. That almost would destroy her. By midnight, I was surrounded by papers and empty cups. I sent the images to David and wrote one last line before clicking send. She thought I wouldn't notice. She was wrong. My phone vibrated almost immediately. A notification from a blocked number. A message. "Have you been asking questions?" I froze. The message had no name or punctuation, just that sentence. The air caught in my throat, my pulse pounding. I typed back, "Who is this?" There was no answer, just 3 dots that appeared and then vanished. The next morning, my phone rang again. The screen showed a name I hadn't seen in months, Jessica. For a full minute, I stared at her name glowing on the screen. A part of me wanted to ignore it. The other part, curiosity, rage, maybe both, made me swipe to answer. "Sarah." Her voice broke in, sweet and loud. "You don't know how busy I've been. I finally sold Grandma's apartment. I closed the deal last week." My fingers tightened around the phone. "You sold it?" "Uh-huh," she said proudly. "A cash offer. The real estate agent said I handled it like a total professional. Anyway, I wanted to thank you for not interfering. I know all that legal stuff overwhelms you." I didn't speak, not because I couldn't, but because if I did, my voice would shake with rage. "And hey," she continued as cheerful as ever, "I'm going to send you some money next week. I thought you could use a little help with rent over there." "A tiny fraction of my inheritance, Jessica?" I said slowly. "You realize that apartment was mine." She laughed softly as if I had made a joke. "Oh, stop it, please. Grandma wanted it for both of us. You are over there in Europe living your artistic dream. I took care of everything for the family." "For the family?" She said it like it was a medal of honor. "You forged her signature," I said dryly. Her tone became sharper, colder. "Be careful, Sarah. You don't know what you are talking about." I took a slow breath. "Actually, I do know. David found inconsistencies, stamps that don't exist, handwriting that doesn't match." Silence. Then a forced laugh. "You're being dramatic again. Maybe that lawyer of yours just wants more money. Don't embarrass yourself." She hung up before I could respond. For a few seconds, I stood there looking at my reflection in the rain-streaked window. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, terrifyingly steady. I replayed the call. I had pressed record, proof. Her arrogance had handed it to me. I sent the file to David. I was already writing another email. Proceed, gather everything. When my mom called that night, I almost didn't answer, but guilt won. "Honey," she said warmly, "I just spoke to Jessica. She told me she sold Grandma's apartment. What a relief to have that resolved." "Resolved," I repeated, my voice shaking. "She has worked so hard," Mom continued. "You should be proud of her." Proud. I swallowed the bitterness in my throat. "Did she tell you who inherited it?" A pause. She said it was divided equally. I closed my eyes. That's not true, Mom. Grandma left it to me. Oh, Sarah, she sighed, sounding tired. Why start drama? Your sister has done everything right. Please, just leave it alone. The call ended before I could respond. For a long time, I stood in the silence, surrounded by the hum of my refrigerator and the low murmur of the London rain. They thought I was emotional, unstable, the silly girl who left to pursue art instead of real life. But real life was about to catch up with them. I opened a new folder on my computer and labeled it Truth. Inside, I started dropping files, recordings, letters, and comparisons. This time, I wasn't just saving evidence. I was building a reckoning. 3 days later, David called. His tone was sharp and contained, the way it gets when something big is about to happen. Sarah, he said, we have filed the fraud complaint. The court ordered the funds from the sale to be frozen. Jessica is about to find out. I pressed the phone against my ear, my heart steady. So, I guess we wait. But we didn't wait long. By noon, my phone started vibrating nonstop. One call after another. Jessica. I let them ring, watching the notifications pile up like proof of guilt. 10 missed calls, then 15, then 20. Finally, I answered. What the hell did you do? She screamed, her voice high and panicked. I don't know, I said evenly. Why don't you tell me? Don't play dumb, Sarah. The bank froze in my account this morning. Do you have any idea what you did? I didn't do anything, I replied. The truth did. There was a moment of silence and then a bitter laugh. You're crazy. You think you can ruin me. You're delusional. You stole what Grandma left me, I said coldly. You forged her name and kept the money. Don't act surprised when the consequences arrive. Her tone cracked. Please. You were never responsible enough to manage that property. I handled it for the family, like I always do. You should thank me for stealing from you, for stopping you from making a fool of yourself, she hissed. You live in another country, drawing logos and drinking lattes. You don't deserve that apartment. My hand tightened around the phone. And you do? Someone had to act like an adult, she snapped. You never grew up. That was when something inside me broke, silently and cleanly. You know what, Jessica? Maybe I didn't grow up, but Grandma trusted me, and you didn't just steal money. You stole her memory. I hung up. The silence after disconnecting felt heavier than her voice. Minutes later, my phone vibrated again. Mom. Sarah, what is going on? Her voice was tense, panicked. Jessica is a sea of tears. She says you filed a fraud complaint. It's true, I said softly, because she forged Grandma's documents. Don't be ridiculous, Mom snapped. Your sister would never do that. She has handled everything responsibly. Do you know how emotional you get? Mom, this isn't emotion. It is evidence. David verified the signatures. She admitted it on the phone. Did you record your sister? Yes, I said, the word cutting the air, because no one ever believes me unless I prove it. A pause, then the usual sigh, the one that had followed me since childhood. You used to be such a good girl, she said finally. I don't know what happened to you. The call ended, leaving me alone with the sound of the rain and my cold, unfamiliar reflection. For years, they had mistaken silence for weakness. Now, silence was my weapon. 2 nights later, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the name associated with it. Richard, Jessica's husband. I answered cautiously. Richard. Hello, Sarah, he said quietly. His voice was tired, stripped of its usual politeness. I hope I'm not crossing a line, but I think you deserve to know the truth. I stayed silent. I didn't know what he had done. He continued. She told me you had given up your share. I didn't ask questions, but after everything exploded, the frozen account, the calls from the bank, I started checking things myself. He exhaled. She forged it. Sarah, the will, the notary, everything. She said you wouldn't notice from over there, so far away. I confronted her yesterday. She broke down. She said she deserved it more. She spent part of the money on a new house. I am not there anymore." The world went silent around me. "And you are telling me this now because I can't keep lying for her. I will testify if this goes to trial." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then, "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me," he said softly. "You were right from the beginning." When the call ended, I sat in silence, watching the rain streak the glass. A strange calm covered me. It wasn't joy, it wasn't triumph, just clarity. David called the next morning. "Richard is cooperating," he said. "We have enough to move forward. The buyers are also going to testify. If we move on this now, it is bulletproof." "Do it," I said. A few hours later, Jessica's lawyer got in touch. They wanted to reach a settlement. "She is offering half the value," David explained, "if you drop the lawsuit and let the sale stand." I let out a low, bitter laugh. "Half the value of what she stole?" "She is desperate," he said. "But if we go to trial, her side will say Grandma wasn't in her right mind when she wrote the will. It's going to be ugly." "I don't care," I said. "I am done keeping the peace at my own expense." He paused. "You sound exactly like your grandmother." That hurt in the best way possible. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened the last email my grandmother had sent me. Her words glowed on the dark screen. "If I ever leave you something, it is not charity. It is a promise that you will keep living with courage." That was when I knew what to do. The next morning, I told David, "I will accept a settlement, but on my terms." He raised an eyebrow. "What are they?" "4 things," I said. "First, she drafts an apology before a notary admitting everything. Second, she refunds every penny to the buyers from her own account. Third, she sends a letter to our parents explaining what she did. And fourth, she legally agrees never to contest another inheritance." He blinked and then smiled slowly. "Poetic. Brutal. I will draft it." By sunset, he called again. "She accepted. She is signing now. Her lawyer says she just wants this to end." When the PDF file arrived, I opened it with shaking hands. The first page began, "I, Jessica, acknowledge that I forged legal documents regarding the estate of Barbara." Her handwriting looked small, defeated. I read it twice and then forwarded it to David with a single line, "Justice served." But victory didn't taste sweet. It tasted heavy, like the air soaked in rain before a storm breaks, because justice doesn't erase betrayal. It only proves you were right all along. 2 weeks later, David called again. "It's official. The property is back in your name. The funds were released, and the buyers were reimbursed." I walked to the window, looking out at the Thames. The morning sun was peeking through the clouds. "What are you going to do now?" he asked. "Sell it," I said softly. "Grandma didn't leave it to me to hold on to. She left it to me so I could move forward." When the payment cleared, I stared at the balance. But it wasn't the number that made me cry. It was what it represented. Faith. I quit my job 2 weeks later and opened my own studio. Creative Studio Barbara. 1 desk, 1 client, and a dream that finally belonged to me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. The apartment sold faster than I expected. When the funds arrived in my account, I sat in the silence of my apartment, watching the numbers shine on the screen. Grandma had given me the courage to defend myself, and I had finally done it. A month later, a small package arrived from home with Mom's handwriting on the box. Inside was Grandma's silver watch and a folded note. "She would have wanted you to have this." I turned the watch over, tracing the engraving on the back with my finger. "The world waits for you." The ticking was faint but constant, like a heartbeat traveling through time. Jessica moved back near our parents, sold her new house at a loss, and asked for a separation. I didn't hate her anymore. I just hoped she learned what Grandma taught me, that freedom and integrity are worth more than anything you can steal. One morning, the sunlight spilled onto my desk, warming the silver watch on my wrist. I smiled, whispering, "I did it, Grandma." Outside, London hummed with new clients, new beginnings, and a life that finally fit me.